This episode of the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast is brought to you by my CRE Accelerator Mastermind, where you'll get access to my step-by-step investment blueprint, essentially a library of resources on how to invest in commercial real estate. You'll get connected to a supportive community of other commercial real estate investors that are doing projects just like you. You'll get personalized coaching and feedback from me every step of the way. Go to www.crecentral.com to learn more. Welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Investor Podcast. We are live today with one of our very own. This episode, and we're playing the theme song again. Hope you guys liked it for the second round. We are live today with one of our very own from the Brokerage Mastermind, David Katz. Excited to be diving into this with you today, David. He's been an active commercial real estate broker in the Colorado area since 2012, focusing on investment sales, 1031s, and I think something that you guys will find very interesting, water rights. Logan calls him the water man because this dude is basically running water sales out in the West, which if you're like me and you're just a broker from, out East, that's not really a thing, right? So I'm pretty excited to be diving into that. Joined by my co-host, as always, with the Brokerage Mastermind deals, Logan Freeman, the man, the myth, the legend himself. But David, that is a brief overview on you, your background. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, Waterman is not that far from Water Boy, so I'm not sure how to interpret that. Actually started in the residential world. I've been really full-time in the commercial since 2018. And I'm just stoked. I had a great week, guys. Super excited about some meetings this week. You want me to just jump in, or you guys want to ask some questions?
Yeah, let's hear about it.
Yeah, I had a really exciting meeting this week with a developer I've been working with for probably close to 10 years. He does all residential development here in Colorado, but he does commercial back in Orange County. And, my colleague, one of the best brokers I know, Jake Arnold, always says activity breeds activity. So this meeting was with a small town that I won't name in northern Colorado, their city manager, their economic development director, and their head of planning. And I was going down the street to go look at some industrial land, and here's the activity. Turns out it was pasture land. It wasn't industrial land. It may have had that future zoning, but I'm coming to the intersection of a U.S. highway, and I see a brand new fuel station of one of the large expanding fuel brands. As I soften my gaze, I see another brand new fuel station of the other rapidly expanding fuel brand. And as I come to the intersection, I see a brand new McDonald's. I'm like, hold on, something's going on at this intersection. And the remaining corner was completely vacant, brownfield, bunch of crumbled gravel. So I hurry home or back to the office. I look up who owns it, and it's owned by the economic development department of this municipality of 23,000 people. Send him an email. He sends me a response the next morning, super excited, super motivated. You want me to come to your office, which is like 45 minutes away. And, I didn't say exactly what property. I kind of led breadcrumbs, but he seemed to know which property it was. So he comes to my office and he shows me a plat. They already have it platted. And I'm kind of looking at it and twisting, trying to orientate myself. And it was actually the opposite corner. They had already platted out, ready to go, engaged my developer for some retail development, and looks like this is probably going to move forward. And these are the opportunities that get me super, super excited. So,
man, that's incredible. I mean, we just dove right into what David Katz is doing on a regular basis, which I absolutely love. But listen to this guy's passion. Listen about the excitement in his voice, right? It's because it's what he's doing has meaning and it fuels him up. And that's what gets me pumped up too. I'm not necessarily driving around looking for land like that, but at the same time, David sees opportunity when you're out there looking. And that's what this is. I always say that sales and brokerage is manufacturing opportunity out of thin air. I mean, that's what you just did. You took one piece of information, you were out in the market being active, you tied it, you had the developer, you go find out some more information, you put it together, and now you've got an opportunity, right? But you did obviously start that way, right? So I need to know, you were in residential and then you got into commercial in 2018. But help the audience here just understand that path, right? And what that path was like for you.
Yeah, so before I made the full transition to commercial, I did a little bit of development land, which if you can picture, Dumb and Dumber, that them going, "Hey Lloyd, let's be developers." That was me and my buddy Stuart, and we happened to found this incredible piece of land in Loveland, Colorado. No idea what the entitlement process was. No idea how much money the infrastructure cost. So real quickly, we learned that we were not the developers, and so I flipped that to a brokerage opportunity, which is how I met this developer I just mentioned to you. You know,
Yep.
2.5 years later, coming out of that, and during it was a horrible experience. But when I came out of it, I was like, I just saw this greenfield land go through this entire process, and now there's dirt moving, and now there's some beautiful homes there. So it started in the land, um, still in residential, just wasn't loving it. I have young kids. You know, open houses were the worst thing in the world to me. I wanted to be with my kids on the weekends, soccer games. I wanted to go fishing or hunting. So uh, I had known our managing partner just high level from the local coffee shop. So I was like, I think I want to do commercial. So I basically stalked Josh. I went to the same coffee shop for like 2.5 weeks straight until I ran into them, set up a meeting. Next thing you know, they had me in for an interview, and I started with Waypoint in November of 2018.
That's awesome, man. That's a great story. Again, more activity breeds activity, right? You put
Yep.
yourself around there. This is a quote that I've been sharing with Tyler for quite some time this last couple months is you're never going to outperform your inner circle. And so you've got to get around
Um,
those right people, right? I mean,
yeah,
I
I
love
love that.
yeah, and that's important, right? Is because but you forcefully entered yourself into that equation. I think so many people are like, well, I'm just waiting for this opportunity. And Tyler and I were talking about this earlier today. And it's this idea that like, hey, something's going to come to me. And right now, look, I'm not gonna we're not getting political today, but right now it is a tough. People think that it's really just gravy out there. We have worked, and I know the Brokers Mastermind folks have worked probably harder this year to get less deals done, just from a standpoint of being, still pretty frozen in the markets than we have in a long time. And you have to be willing to do that, put yourself out there, man. So that's incredible. But one point I do want to make and ask you a little bit of a context question is, 12 months ago, I started studying land, and you all know about the land opportunities I'm now working on. I know Tyler right here is also studying land and understanding urban zoning and planning. How important is that? Everything starts with the land, but how important has it been for you, David, in launching your brokerage career?
Yeah, I mean the value of the land is the intersection of the location and the zoning and or future land use. I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission in Fort Collins for 6 years. Unfortunately, I termed out. I chaired it for 2 years. I tried to go another term. The mayor went to bat for me and went to the city attorney, and she said no. But I stayed involved. There's a new commercial corridors and centers land use code update. It's about to have its second reading in Fort Collins in December. I was part of that focus group. What I know coming out of that, I also had a meeting this week with a 55 plus apartment developer for land that was completely off limits because of the current zoning, because of the changes that are about to be approved. Now it's green light for that project. So knowing that ahead of time, put me in a position where I could be fast to make an offer on the land, some of the most desirable land in Fort Collins, Southeast Fort Collins. It was just off limits for so many different uses because of the previous zoning code.
Yeah, I mean, knowledge is power when it comes to land, especially, right? Because it's not as easy to look at a piece of dirt as it is an office building and say, okay, well, it's Class B, it has 7 tenants in it. Here's what the cash flow is. We could very easily value this. It's rather simple or easy for investors to overlook the opportunities in land if you don't understand the zoning, if you don't understand where it's going. And I heard somebody say the other day, hey, land is pretty simple. They tell you where they're going to build the roads. So just
Yes, sure.
following the city plan, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't even pay attention to that. So, I mean, David, like making that transition out of residential into commercial had to be a bit of shell shock, right? Because they're very, very different. What was that like, and what skills were you able to bring to the table from that perspective?
It was and it wasn't. I mean, my life was better the instant, like my home life was better the instant I came to commercial. What was the shell shock is that in the residential side, it was kind of just like conveyor belt stamp. This is the process. This is the cadence of a deal. 30, 45-day close. A lease is basically a blank sheet of white paper, and like let's figure it out, right? Let's like oh, we can negotiate that. We can negotiate this. So that the broad nature of commercial, that was the biggest shell shock to me. The second part of that question was just kind of like the hustle and the marketing side of the residential, and maybe that wasn't from residential. Maybe that's just kind of like Detroit roots, just bringing that hustle and that grit. So maybe that's it. So.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that stands out to me is you've earned your CCIM now, and you served on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I mean, most brokers won't do either of those things, right? I mean, that's putting in the work, learning on both of those fronts, and then putting yourself in those Planning and Zoning Commissions. I mean, I got to imagine that not every moment of that was super exhilarating, right? But like the learning and the experience and the connections you probably made throughout that gives you the gusto and the experience to say, okay, I'm driving down the road. I'm going to call this other municipality, and now I can interact with them because I know exactly how to, right? I mean, that's got to give you a deal flow edge, right?
Yeah, I mean, from the planning and zoning, like I know the questions to ask. Each municipality is slightly different, but I know where the dead bodies are. For example, I could say, hey, I see a pond or some wetlands, do you have 50-foot or 100-foot setbacks from that? Because in Fort Collins, we have stringent rules on that. So I just know, hey, are those wetlands delineated or not? Are they jurisdictional or non-jurisdictional? So you just start learning all these things. You can look at a piece of land and go, this one's hairy. We might be able to work through it, but I can see all the hair on it right away versus before or not going through that. It may all look like gravy, but land deals are hard. I mean, they're not easy. They are super, super difficult. If I rep buyers on them, I'm taking money up front. There's so much money. So much time is put in even before you're under contract, right? So I'm like an attorney. I take retainers, and I'll credit it back to them, but you have to. I mean, I'll do 10, 20 hours of work before we're even under contract, easily on land deals, easily. So
yeah, that's
if
an
not more.
interesting.
So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point to make there, I think, because if you want to get into those land deals, it typically the land the way it sits right now, something needs to change for it to be able to get to the price that the owner wants, right?
Yeah,
And
especially infill. So
exactly, and that's always been the issue with land is owner wants $5 a square foot. It's not worth that today, but then you got to go spend time, effort, and energy and capital to get it to that point, right? Have you been able to put any of those kind of creative deals together where, for example, I've got a landowner who's contributing the land to the project and going to stay on for the development of that? Have you been able to get exposed to any of those opportunities through your brokerage?
yeah, there's one we're working on in Cheyenne, Wyoming now. Like I'm in northern Colorado. I'm 40 minutes from Cheyenne, Wyoming. So my sandbox is between those two um, trade areas. He's got he's a builder. He owns the land. It's rough graded. The utilities are there. 120 units. It's just no one's going to pay him and then have him go build it, right? So we're looking for JV opportunities right now. We're exploring some term sheets right now for him to put the land in the deal, at its equity, and then take his development and his builder fee. So I'm working on one right now. That's that exact example. So
yeah, most definitely. Okay, so I saw you really start to get active on social media this year, and one of the recent posts that you posted that you closed a $19 million industrial deal this year. We have to spend some time talking about this project because one, that's a monster deal. And then two, it was also facilitated utilizing a 721 exchange, right? And so break this thing down for us, David.
Yeah, it was 19.9, Logan. Don't leave me short. So
yeah, come on, man, don't shortcut him.
Couldn't quite get to $20 million.
Can Tyler and I just finish this? got introduced to this gentleman who was into self-storage. I thought I maybe had some opportunities for him, and ended up going to lunch with him. And two most important questions you can ask is, well, what else do you own, and would you consider selling it? And sorry, you might be able to hear a train going by out here. If not, I apologize.
You hear it over here.
I knew this buyer's buy box, right? I just knew it. I met him at the Equity Exchangers group. If you guys know the National Council of Exchangers, I knew his buy box. It was large value add industrial. I just knew they own stuff in Minneapolis and Milwaukee and Indy. I just knew this fit them. So I brought him, and he lives in Breckenridge, Colorado. Brought him up there. It was a definite go. And then I learned from him to ask those questions, like, well, what are you going to do with the money, And they needed to pay off some bad debt, but they also didn't want to pay a bunch of taxes, so they ended up keeping $5 million in that deal. And that only works if you're a fund through an UPREIT model. Like, I don't have a fund, so I couldn't utilize that. You could do something similar, like in a JV model, and have them keep money in the deal. It's probably tax deferred. Check with your accountant. So that's kind of where I learned that, is from my client. But now I have that tool in my tool chest, and I'm looking for those opportunities all over the place right now. So.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, congratulations on closing that big deal. Also, we were working on, you were working on a sizable deal that I saw today that looks like you guys won the listing agreement on. And that was a very competitive scenario, right? And I remember going back and forth and how to navigate that scenario and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about how, you've been able to position yourself in your market as somebody who can compete against the larger brokerages and the national shops, man, because I know that was a competitive bidding scenario and you guys won that deal.
Yeah, we've had that listing for a couple months. We were just able to price it, and that's because we're helping the owner fight the tax assessment. So we didn't want to have it out there at a price while they were appealing their tax value. So we just priced that last week or the week before. I think local knowledge, but national reach. I have the national reach through the equity exchangers. I have the national reach now from you guys in the mastermind. And we know that sometimes the large green team doesn't like to play nice with the large red team. So we kind of put an infographic together that showed that we'll play nice with all of them. We'll bring them all in, because they can say we got offices in New York and this and that, but we have no borders. We have no boundaries. We will play with anybody. And we're very well respected. We're a homegrown company. Our managing partner, Josh, grew up in Fort Collins. He did go to school at CU, went to grad school at DU, but we're the home team. You know what I mean? So we're the home team.
Yeah,
so I think that's
absolutely.
how we're able
I
to
love
do
what
that.
you said, man. I mean, local knowledge, national reach, and look, I mean, that's the opportunity now. And I truly believe this with the way that artificial intelligence and digital marketing, social media is now revolutionizing the brokerage industry. You can compete with your reach. You can compete with the data analytics and the research that can be done, and you can compete. But you have to know what tools to use and how to utilize those, right? So let's maybe transition just a bit to just joining the Brokers Mastermind. I mean, you're a part of the group. You've been a part of the group for, gosh, I don't know. I mean, it's been a while now. But like, what were you out there seeking, and what made you initially kind of join the group?
I mean, I've always been a learner. You always got to invest in yourself, always, whether it's reading or a podcast or a class or accountability or a coach. I mean, you always have to, either you're learning or you're dying, right? And that's it. So, I mean, if I'm going to simplify it, it's going to be that. You're learning or you're dying. So that's probably what pushed me to join the group. So.
Yeah. And I mean, from your experience so far, I don't know if you are utilizing artificial intelligence and other technologies that we've been adopting through the mastermind, but like, what's some of the things that, you would just pick out to say, man, I'd like to highlight this. This is something I've really learned from the group outside of, just showing up weekly and accountability, because I'm pretty sure David is about the most, well-seasoned person and showing up every single week. So he's committed to being there, right? But what stands out to you about learning from the group right now?
Yeah, I mean, when you're in front of a group, you always want to. I'm competitive. right? I mean, I think you have to be in this business. So, I want to be one of the best, and that's part of it. The AI is definitely a big part of it. Kind of we talk about the lucrative niche. I think that's a big part of it. Find that blue ocean. When I first made the transition, I focused on multifamily. We're not a multifamily market. We're not like KC or Tennessee. We don't have a lot of those 24 to 60 unit mid market multifamilies, and all the mid market multifamily that's out there is so competitive with a 28-year-old in a Patagonia vest. You know what I mean? So I'm finding my lucrative niche. Like nobody compete with me for land in Fort Collins. I know the land use code better here than any broker, and I can confidently say that. Now, we have a lot of amazing brokers. I'm actually fortunate. Every broker in my market is fantastic. I would go have a beer with every single one of them. There are no a-holes in my market. I'm so fortunate. So I think that, and then, having access to you guys, I had a little issue once. I text Tyler, back and forth, he called me. Usually when I text you, I'm just like trying to make you laugh, like comfy.
He does a good job.
Yeah. So I mean, having the access to you guys, and then just kind of being competitive, and then definitely the AI. There's definitely tools I never would have found that I definitely use, like Gamma, like the deep research function. I'll do deep research on something, and then that creates a call list for me. I'll bang out calls trying to find. We're really good as brokers about getting listings, and then we just like forget about them. Then you actually got to sell them, by the way, and sometimes that's the hard part. So you're outbound. Most of my outbound is trying to sell my listings, which makes it an easy phone call, right? So to me,
being able to have a product talked about that is obviously a reason to call somebody.
Yeah, absolutely.
David, I was going to say, I mean, I want to dive further into the multifamily stuff, right? I mean, I want to hear more about, and I mean, we could talk about AI until our ears bleed as well, because you guys are both doing really interesting things with that. But it's interesting for me to hear like you jumped into multifamily first, and then that was not the market, and then so like how did you go from multifamily to land, and then like talk to us about water rights? Like I think that's really intriguing to me. Like I want to know more about how that kind of came about.
Yeah, it wasn't that linear, right? Like I heard a joke once, like if you were a commercial broker in Chicago, you basically ride the Sears Tower up and down the elevator. I'm in a small market, right? We're 150, 180,000 people. So I have to be a little more generalist. There's things that I don't do. Water, I used to go to the Mile High Exchangers, the equity exchangers group. And, when I first came out here and learned about water rights, I was like, I'm from Michigan, right? You just throw a pump in the lake and but
Exactly.
it's a real deal legal battle here in water rights every single day. We have to dedicate raw water for development here. So if you own land, you entitle land, usually it's due at permit. Because there's such limited water here in the arid West, you have to buy water rights or water units and then dedicate it to that land. And usually there's a measurement, there's usually a table or a matrix of how much you owe per residential unit. Sometimes that changes if you have untreated, not potable. Some municipalities, you can buy those water credits cash in lieu, and you don't have to go out and source them. But it's hyper local. Like I only do this in northern Colorado. I don't do it in Denver Basin. I've had people reach out to me on LinkedIn to ask questions about the state of Washington. I have no idea. Look, I can go sell a retail investment in Maine or Florida or Texas. I can underwrite it. I can look at comps and get a rough idea what the prevailing cap rate is. Water rights is so hyper local that I have to keep it here. So I just started asking questions and being that inquirer. There's a couple people that were my mentors and still are my mentors. I go to coffee with them. I'd buy coffee. I'd buy breakfast. I'd ask questions. I'd remember half of what they told me. And I just did that and just constantly asking questions. And right when you think you finally get it, you learn something like, man, I don't get it. So, but I finally got my foot in the door and I'm starting to do a lot more in that water world. Negotiating a water deal today. I got a text yesterday that I should see an LOI and some other water after Thanksgiving. But development has slowed down. right? The home builders are slow, and that's who's buying them ultimately, either the developer or the builder. So water rights are actually kind of slow right now. And maybe that was a blessing in disguise for me, that I kept my foot on the gas and I was able to stay in that when they weren't just flying off the market. The owners of the water weren't able to sell them by themselves. Now it's not like I don't put these water rights on CoStar or the MLS. This is 100% pick up the phone and see who needs it. So, did that answer your question, Tyler?
Yeah, man. That's like true old school brokerage. There are no comps. There are no phone books. You just got to know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the token boomer. I'm not a boomer, but I pretend that I'm the token boomer in the office.
Well, let me just kind of double click on one thing. So you've mentioned lucrative niche. You've mentioned diving deep into certain strategies, and you've mentioned blue ocean, right? So for folks who don't know what blue ocean is, what does that mean for you when you're thinking about your business?
Yeah, you just got to kind of compete where the transactions are and where you can add value. Like, you know what I mean? Don't be a dime a dozen. Like, where is there opportunity? Where can I eat? Right? We're in brokerage. We only eat what we kill. So I have to be swimming in that blue ocean where there's a lot of bait. So
the other thing about blue oceans is they have a high barrier of entry. And what we have learned today, and I hope the listeners are taking away, is you've had the willingness to go in and figure that out, right? Water rights. You're from Michigan, and we're talking about water rights. Sorry about the Chiefs, with the Michigan game. But anyways, I see David's face right there. You guys are doing a little better than us.
He took a shot, man. He took a shot. Did you hear that?
Yeah, Logan tried to make fun of me earlier this year for being like, I don't think Kansas City's doing so hot, are they? And we were at the mastermind here in Nashville. He was like, oh, yeah, Tyler's clearly not paying attention to football. Well, guess what? I looked up their record the other day. They're like 5-5. So you know what? I hope you enjoy that.
It's all coming back to you. Yeah.
How's your hockey team doing?
Way worse. Are you kidding me? Dude, the best part about going to Preds games is just laughing about how awful it has gotten. But you know what? Just like when you got your team, you got your team. And unfortunately, you got to ride with them into the depths of hell sometimes.
That's right, man. I mean, the Lions been rebuilding since 1955. So,
dude, well, hey, at least you got the Avalanche, man. I mean, I know that we're not a sports.
No. I'm a Detroit guy. I don't have the Avalanche. I'm a Wings fan. So.
Oh well, I guess you're doing as well as we are then.
Yeah.
But on the just being able to differentiate yourself, unique value proposition. I have heard on here today that the land use code in your area better than most brokers, probably better than all brokers. You've been on the planning and zoning board. You have really understood water rights. Those are three things right there that stand out to me that says David Katz is different in this market, right? And so you can't be dime a dozen. So that blue ocean strategy, meaning there needs to be a high barrier of entry, and you have to be able to go willing to solve a problem that other people aren't willing to do. That has been a theme for myself and brokerage my whole career, is if somebody says, Logan, don't do that, that's too hard, or you're going to waste your time, I can't take their word for it. I've got to go figure out for myself that that's true. And I think that is a huge lesson that anyone here listening can take away. Just because other people aren't willing to do it, they're not willing to spend the time to do it, doesn't mean it can't be lucrative for you, right? I mean, that is the opportunity right there in this business is figuring that out for yourself. And it seems like you've got yourself in a nice honey hole, and it is working out well for you.
Yeah, 100%. So,
well, David, what's next for you, man? I mean, where are you planning on going from here?
Yeah, I mean, kind of keep doing what I'm doing and building on it. I mean, we got to focus on the opportunities in the changing markets, and stick to fundamentals. I'm big on fundamentals of real estate too. Like we're all kind of industrial people here, right? Like you look at a piece of industrial property, like is it close to a transportation corridor? Does it have yard space? Does it have circulation for trucks? Does it have power? Does it have overhead doors? So you just got to focus on the fundamentals, fundamentally sound real estate that will trade, and that is what is being desired by the people in the market that want to transact. The other thing that I haven't mentioned is, probably the number one thing I have done and focused on this past year was saying no. And no doesn't have to be an abrasive no. No can look a lot of different ways. Maybe it's partnering with someone in your office who works on that asset class. For me, I don't do a lot of office leasing, so I bring my colleagues into that every time. Maybe it's a junior or associate broker, whatever you want to call it. I've passed a lot of stuff. We have an all-star junior broker in the office right now named Jack Chunko. That guy, I owe him probably as much to my success as anybody, and he's an all-star. I've passed him so much stuff, and he's like, "We got an LOI, David." I'm like, "Sweet." So, you got to say no to the things that don't move the needle. You can't be everything to anybody, and focus on what's going to move the needle for you, your family, your career, and what you enjoy. So I think that's probably the most important thing. So continue to do that and continue to say no more often.
Yeah, I think we should all be saying no more often. I mean, I'll never forget the first day as a broker that I fired a client, right? Like, I think we all remember that, because it was one of those things where it's like, do we really need to get rid of this client? But once you do it, you realize, like, oh, that's freed me up to go work on all of the stuff that's actually productive, that's actually been better for my mental health, not having to deal with that person, whatever it was, right? And man, saying no is incredibly powerful. Well, David, thanks for coming on the show today and diving into all of this with us, especially the water rights. I mean, that to me is just so fascinating from a brokerage perspective. If anybody listening wants to connect with you, if they want to learn more about land and maybe even buy some water from you, where do they find you?
LinkedIn, David Katz, or you can call my cell, 970-481-5808. Happy to jump on the call and discuss land and water in Northern Colorado.
That's great. Well, we'll have that link in the description below. Logan, David, thanks for joining me today, guys. Really appreciate you all, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Logan.
Cheers.